You have been taught that betrayal is a tragedy, a scar on your story. The truth is far more terrifying and infinitely more hopeful. Betrayal is not an accident in your life. It is a divine instrument of transportation. The air was thick with the dust of the Canaanite wilderness, shimmering in the heat. It was a day like any other, until it wasn't. A splash of impossible color appeared on the horizon, a coat of many colors, worn by a boy full of dreams. A boy beloved by his father, and for that very reason, hated by his brothers. They saw him coming, and the slow-burning resentment that had festered for years in the shadow of their father's favoritism finally ignited into a murderous flame. "Behold, this dreamer comes," they sneered, their words dripping with a poison reserved only for family. They ripped the coat from his back, the symbol of his special status, tearing not just fabric, but the very identity he had known. They threw him into a dry pit, a dark, suffocating hole, and the brilliant desert sky was replaced by a small circle of mocking blue. His pleas for mercy, the cries to his own flesh and blood, were answered only by the cold silence of their envy as they sat down to eat. Their meal, a grotesque celebration of their victory, but murder was messy, and a better opportunity presented itself. A caravan of Ishmaelites, their camels swaying under the weight of spices and balm, were making their way to Egypt. Judah, the practical one, voiced the thought that would seal the boy's fate. "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. 20 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. The price of a brother's soul." The hands that should have protected him were the ones that pulled him from the pit and pushed him toward a life of bondage. He looked into their eyes, the eyes of his brothers, and saw not recognition, not regret, but the chilling emptiness of strangers. He was no longer Joseph, the dreamer. He was cargo, a commodity, a ghost being erased from his own family's history. This was not just an attack. It was an assassination of his past, his present, and his future. Now, does that feeling sound familiar? Perhaps not the pit, perhaps not the silver coins, but the cold, gut-wrenching shock of it all. The betrayal that came not from an enemy, but from the person you shared your secrets with. The colleague you mentored, who stole your idea and took the promotion that was rightfully yours. The business partner you trusted, who emptied the company accounts and vanished. The lover you gave your heart to, who whispered your deepest insecurities to someone else in another bed. The friend you considered a sibling, who, in your darkest hour of need, simply disappeared. The family member who, fueled by jealousy, spread lies that poisoned the relationships you held most dear. It is a unique kind of pain, a spiritual violence. It doesn't just break your heart. It shatters the very lens through which you see the world. It makes you question your own judgment, your own worth, your own reality. It is the cold realization that the person you gave a key to your life to, used it to lock you in a prison of your own making. You look up at the heavens, and the question rips from your soul, not as a whisper, but as a scream. Why would a loving God allow this to happen? Why would he let someone I trusted become the very instrument of my destruction? And here is the timeless wisdom, the secret hidden within Joseph's story that will change everything you thought you knew about your pain. God did not cause the betrayal. The evil was born in the hearts of his brothers, but he absolutely, sovereignly, and masterfully used it. The betrayal was not a detour from Joseph's destiny. It was the only path that could get him there. It was not a punishment. It was a promotion disguised as a catastrophe. Understand this, and it will set you free. Betrayal is God's most brutal and effective form of transportation. He uses the envy of others to move you from a place of comfort and familiarity, where you have become stagnant, to a place of destiny that you would never have chosen for yourself. The brothers thought they were ending his story, but they were merely buying him a one-way ticket to the throne room, paid for by their own sin. Let us dissect this divine strategy, this painful promotion, step by step. First, there was the pit. The purpose of the pit was isolation. God had to separate Joseph from his identity as the favored son, an identity that made him arrogant and naive. In the darkness of that hole, stripped of his coat and his pride, he was no longer Jacob's favorite. He was nothing, and in that nothingness, he had only God. The pit is where God breaks your reliance on people, on status, on family validation, so that your only reliance is on him. Your betrayal forced you into a pit of loneliness, not to abandon you, but to introduce you to the only presence that will never leave you. Next, there was Potiphar's house. The purpose of this stage was training. Joseph, sold as a slave, could have become bitter, but instead, he excelled. He learned the Egyptian language, their customs, their complex systems of household management. He learned integrity when no one was watching. He was, in essence, enrolled in a divine MBA program for palace administration. But his classroom was the house of a pagan captain. God was teaching him the skills he would need to govern a nation, while he was still a slave. The betrayal transported you to a part of his house of your own. A job you felt was beneath you. A situation of thankless service. Not to demote you, but to secretly equip you with the skills your destiny requires. Then came the prison. This was the most cruel twist. After demonstrating perfect integrity by resisting the advances of Potiphar's wife, he is falsely accused and thrown into a royal dungeon. This seems like the ultimate injustice. Proof that doing the right thing gets you nowhere. But this is the masterstroke of God's plan. The purpose of the prison was positioning and testing. This was not just any prison. It was where the king's political prisoners were kept. In the pit, God taught Joseph dependence. In Potiphar's house, God taught him administration. In the prison, God taught him leadership under pressure and gave him access to the one thing he needed most: divine intelligence. It was here that he met the king's cupbearer and baker. It was his gift of dream interpretation, honed in the darkness, that became his key to the palace. God was not saving him from the prison. God was positioning him through the prison. Your betrayal may have thrown you into a prison of your own, a period of waiting, of being forgotten, of seeing your reputation unjustly ruined. You feel like your life is on hold, but what you cannot see is that you are in a divine waiting room, and God is arranging for you to meet the very people who hold the keys to your next chapter. He is testing your character in the dark, so that it can be trusted in the light. The pit, the slavery, the prison. From a human perspective, this is a sequence of failures, a life spiraling into ruin. But from a divine perspective, it is the most efficient, albeit painful, path to the throne. It took 13 years of being stripped, sold, enslaved, and forgotten to transform a spoiled dreamer into a humble statesman capable of saving the world. And now we arrive at the climax, the ultimate payoff. The moment that reveals the entire secret. Years later, Joseph is the prime minister of Egypt. Second only to Pharaoh, a famine has ravaged the land, and his brothers, the very men who sold him, are now in Egypt, bowing before him, begging for food. They do not recognize him, but he recognizes them, and when he finally reveals himself, he doesn't say, "You criminals, now you will pay for what you did." He says the most profound words in the entire narrative. The thesis statement for all suffering. Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Read those words again. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. He did not deny their evil. He did not minimize his pain. He acknowledged the malicious intent of his betrayers, but he saw a higher purpose woven through it. A divine intention that overruled their human one. He realized his brothers were not the authors of his story. They were merely the unwilling co-pilots in a plan far greater than any of them could have imagined. This is the Joseph secret, to be able to look at the people who threw you in the pit, who sold you for 20 pieces of silver, and see them not as the architects of your misery, but as the unwitting taxi drivers of your destiny. This is the highest form of spiritual maturity, to see God's sovereign hand, even in the malice of men. It is a perspective that drains the poison from your past and transforms your deepest wounds into your greatest wisdom. So I ask you, look back at the deepest betrayal in your life, the one that still makes your heart ache, the one that you thought had ended you. Can you, even now, with the wisdom of Joseph's story, begin to see it differently? Can you begin to see it not as the end of your story, but as the violent, unwanted transportation to your true calling? Is it possible that the pit they threw you in was the only way for God to get you to the palace? Let me know your story in the comments, because your testimony might be the key that frees someone else from their prison. The purpose of your pain was never just about you. Joseph's journey was not just for his own promotion. It was to save his family, the very family that betrayed him, and to preserve the future nation of Israel. Your betrayal, your journey through the pit and the prison, has equipped you with a unique authority and empathy to help others who are going through the same thing. God does not waste a hurt. So do not despair when you are betrayed. Understand that a great and terrible divine promotion is underway. You are being moved. You are being separated. You are being trained and positioned. And one day you will stand before those who harmed you, not with bitterness in your heart but with the calm, powerful wisdom of Joseph, and you will understand that the greatest secret of faith is that God's goodness is so profound, his power so absolute, that he can take the worst evil man can do, and weave it into the greatest good he can imagine. The betrayal was never the end. It was just the brutal, beautiful beginning.